Hello and welcome to a different kind of video with an absence of face, and that is because I want to focus on the game we're talking about today, which is the fantastic Hades from Supergiant Games. Released in September 2020, Hades is a roguelike tale about gods, the underworld, and family. It follows the son of Hades, Prince Zagreus, as he attempts to escape his father's realm and find his mother in the mortal world. Along the way, you'll meet well-known names in Greek mythology like Sisyphus, Eurydice, and even Theseus, not to mention receiving help from the gods of Olympus themselves along the way. So the main point of this video is to answer the question, is it worth picking up Hades in 2023, with Hades 2 already on its way after its announcement at the Game Awards last year? I already know the answer, with Hades being one of my favourite new games in a long time, but let's see if we can't convince you too. So like I said, Hades is a roguelike game, meaning you'll be travelling through procedurally generated levels which are different every time on your way to the overworld, the end goal. It also means that dying or failing your run will leave you thrown in the river Styx and sent straight back home to Hades before you start all over again. However, along the way you'll gather rewards, experience and currency to unlock permanent upgrades, making everything easier for next time. And eventually, because of that, you'll make it, I promise. Hades features 6 choices of weapon for each run: the Stygian Blade, sword, the Eternal Spear, Shield of Chaos, the Heart-Seeking Bow, the Twin Fists of Malphon, some nice spiky gloves, and finally the Adamant Rail, affectionately known, by me at least, as a big gun. Along with Zagreus himself, these weapons can all be upgraded and given different aspects, changing their abilities. In between your runs, successful or otherwise, you'll be hovering around the Great Hall interacting with other characters such as Nyx, Thanatos, Deucer the Gorgon, and even that lovable pup Cerberus, usually seen relaxing next to the throne of Hades and readily available for pets. That's right, you can pet the dog. This area, essentially the hub world of Hades, can also be customized to your liking once you get a bit deeper into the game. Aside from the dungeon running itself, this is actually one of my favourite parts of the game, giving you a bit of space and time to relax, take stock and enjoy some wonderful lore. You'll also eventually be able to see your stats and a breakdown of how you're getting on with your escape attempts in one of the side rooms. Hades is an extremely story-driven game, so make sure you wander around and talk to everyone before you get back down to business. The writing and voice acting in this title are where Hades really shines, and actually a lot of the voice acting was done in-house by members of the studio's team. Darren Korb, for example, provides the voice of Zagreus and a couple of other characters alongside serving as the composer for the game. In the last decade or so, he created music for Supergiant's previous releases Pyre, Transistor, and Bastion. Logan Cunningham, the voice of Hades and many of the gods of Olympus, is also a long-time collaborator with Supergiant, appearing, or speaking at least, in Pyre, Transistor, and Bastion as well. Supergiant took the interesting and now popular approach of working with the players themselves to create the best game and experience possible, releasing Hades into early access in September 2020. And clearly it worked out, with Hades winning Best Indie Game at the Golden Joystick Awards and the Game Awards 2020, alongside a pile of other nominations and victories. These included prizes for Best Audio, Best Game Design, and of course Best Writing. Personally, I think the music and the story are some of the best parts of Hades, with massive amounts of dialogue and character development in between your hopefully successful escape attempts. Every meeting provides more information on characters, and especially their relationships with Zagreus, other people, and even themselves. It's not a game I expected to have so much detail, but it really is one of the most lore-heavy indie games I've played in a long time, and it makes the entire experience so much more personal and connected. Any game that lets you shower Greek gods with gifts is pretty much alright by me. In terms of gameplay, Hades is a fairly simple hack-and-slash dungeon crawler, with most of the weapons keeping you in melee range combat with various randomized enemies in every room. Each of the 3 areas of the game will also challenge you with a boss battle at the end, before you really get to the big bad. Challenge is also the correct word for these bosses, because you will most likely fall to each of them, at least at the start of your adventure before you've stacked up on upgrades. The sword, shield, spear and gloves will require some care, making sure to do as much damage as possible before you dodge away from an enemy attack. The bow and rail will allow you to make quick hits against the malevolent citizens of the underworld from a distance, however with a little less damage than close combat. But again, upgrades are king. These weapons can all take on completely different abilities and attacks as you progress through the game, so you can build to your talents and preferences. The chambers you fight through will keep their base appearances, stone prison-like rooms for Tartarus, islands drifting in lava for Asphodel, and the mystical, almost heavenly clouds of Elysium. However, the simple layout of these rooms will change on each playthrough, giving some much needed variety to your runs. The type of enemies will also vary, and you can even make things harder for yourself by adding modifiers once you've reached a certain part of the game. Hades is always evolving and changing under the player's input, and this leads to a still fresh experience even after 100 hours of gameplay, which is where I am these days, and I haven't even reached the epilogue. And along the lines of evolving, once you've made enough progress with the other characters of Hades, you'll start receiving keepsakes which grant you benefits designed to help you through your escape attempts. So it pays to make friends in hell. And speaking of friends, we move on to one of the biggest draws and features of Hades, which is your friends up on Mount Olympus. During your escape attempts, you will meet and speak to members of the Greek pantheon, who will offer you boons to help you on your journey. All of these boons are related to which god provides them, for example lightning powers from Zeus, the power of the sea from Poseidon, and straight up violence from Ares, the god of war. You'll make enemies weak with the love of Aphrodite, run with winged feet after meeting Hermes, and fire arrows from the heavens with the goddess of the hunt, Artemis. All of these boons will appear at random throughout the game, and every run will provide you with different ones, and allow you to mix and match and have any combination of abilities. I don't know enough about maths and permutations to tell you how many different combinations there actually are, but there's a lot, and you'll be rewarded for collecting them all. My personal favourites in terms of boons are the Dodge Deflect and the Heavy Damage Doom. Dodge Deflect does exactly what you'd expect, reflecting enemy damage back at them, which is especially useful in boss fights. And I suppose Doom also does what it says on the tin, which is dooming enemies to receiving an extra burst of damage after your main attack lands. Even more powerful are the God's Calls, which can be used after your call meter has built up in the bottom left corner. You can only have one of these bonuses at a time, but they're very powerful, with some enabling you to wipe out any enemies in sight once activated. Poseidon's will turn you into a tidal wave of energy, pushing enemies away and heavily damaging them, and Artemis will fire a barrage of arrows into the nearest target, which is extremely good if you're struggling with a boss or a particularly spongy foe. So, I think I've got my main points across, and that pretty much boils down to yes, Hades is 100% worth your attention, even 2.5 years after release. It sits at the very top of my favourite indie games, and I was addicted to it when I started streaming it in 2021. Hades always finds its way back into my Steam library, being a fantastic title to drop into and explore when you've got half an hour or so free. Even better, it's now available on nearly every platform, Switch included. You can play on PC, PS4 and 5, and as of right now, February 2023, it's included in Game Pass on Xbox and PC as well. And for those of you lucky enough to own a Steam Deck, it's the perfect game to play on the go. To wrap up, a little info on Hades 2, which is coming at some point. With plans to again release straight into early access, we might actually be seeing it sooner than we think. Hades 2 will follow the princess of the underworld and sister to Zagreus, who is aiming to defeat Cronus, the Titan of Time, with the aid of the Olympians. I can only assume that some characters will return, but as of now, we don't have a ton of information. But all will be revealed in time. Our time, not that of Cronus. And as for today, our time is up. I hope you've enjoyed this short leap into Hades, and I hope if you haven't already played it, you'll pick it up and try it, because trust me, you won't be disappointed. Thank you very much for watching, don't forget to like this video, subscribe if you fancy, and head on over to Twitch to catch live gameplay of all sorts of games 4 or 5 times a week. I'll see you in the next video.